Let's see. This is mine. Right, so that's the Daf Chafei on top, Mamash on top word. Chafei 25a. But I have to go back a little bit just to get into what we were talking about. So the main issue that we're talking about is about halfway up the page about Ma'ul Halas when it sees Kapayim L'Yuchsin. If you see a Kohen doing the Siyas Kapayim, Berchas Kohanim, can you assume that he's a Meyuchas? And all of these Gemaras also about Shtaros before, it comes out that the question is, do we allow somebody to do the Siyas Kapayim without proving it? He just comes and says he's a Kohen, because if we're going to elevate him from there to the Yuchsim, we have to already take the precaution already not to allow him to do the Siyas Kapayim. The Siyas Kapayim alone wouldn't be a problem to allow him to do it in of itself, but since they might elevate him there from Yuchsim, so then we would not allow him to in the Siyas Kapayim already without proving first that he's a Kohen. This is an interesting thing that he says it on the Gemara before, on the case of Malim and Truma L'Yuchsin. So let everybody just get together and decide what, if we're going to be Malim from Truma to Yuchsin, so then we have to have Eidim on the Truma. If we're not going to, so then you don't need Eidim on the Truma. That's just Kasha, basis for a plea. It means all of these Gemaras, what are you arguing about? This let them all both say Malim, and then you do need Eidim for the Truma. If you say both of them Lo Malim, you don't need this. It's Heskemi. It's just our decision what we're going to do. So Taisa says that the question is the Chashina, the people are going to do it on their own. Chashina and Shema Yavim and Truma Yuchsin, and therefore we have to do it already. So the Gemara's whole issue about all these different questions about Truma and then about Shtoros and about Siyas Kapayim is all, if people on their own, if they're going to see a Kohen acting as a Kohen in one aspect, are they going to on their own, let's say he must be a Meyuchas? And if people will do that, then we have to take the precaution of not letting him do that first thing already, unless he's already proven to be a Kohen. So the question was about the Siyas Kapayim. That's what we're working on. We found the machlokas about it. Rav Chisda and Rav Avina, one says yes, one says not. And now we're in the middle of the proofs. Rav brought a proof yesterday because the Brisa says, Rav Yossi says, Gadol Chazaka, because at the times of Nehemiah, it says they were Kohanim who weren't able to prove their lineage. And he said that you cannot, when you go to Eretz Yisrael now, you cannot eat Kodesh HaMikdash, Kodesh HaKodeshim, Kodesh HaMikdash, but if Moshe B'dayik, you could eat Kodesh HaGvul, which one means is Truma. Whatever you were doing till now, Gadol Chazaka, you have status quo. And the Gemara's right was status quo means whatever you did until now in Bava, you could continue doing. And that would include also the Siyas Kapayim. How could you let them do the Siyas Kapayim in Eretz Yisrael if you hold Malin with the Siyas Kapayim Le'Yuchsin, but the people are going to end up saying that they're Miyuchasim, and you don't want to make them Miyuchasim. These people, they were not Miyuchasim, they didn't have the Ksav Yichus. And we only let them to do a status quo without any risk. But he's saying that if you hold Malin in the Siyas Kapayim Le'Yuchsin, that means that if we see a Kohen doing the Siyas Kapayim, we're going to eventually allow him to be whatever a Kohen Yuchas has to be. The Gemara thought this is a raya that Ein Malin in the Siyas Kapayim L'Yuchsin, and the Gemara disproved this. We rejected this proof because Shana Yochad the Riach Haskayu over here, the fact that we did not let them to eat kachim from the mikdash, that was a declaration to everybody that they're not regular Kohanim. There's a question about them, but usually if you would say maybe usually you do say Malin in the Siyas Kapayim L'Yuchsin because there's a chash that they that you could take. You could assume if they're doing the Siyas Kapayim, they're Yuchasim also. So the Gemara disproves this proof. They rejects this proof. The Gemara ended off also. On the bottom line, you must say this because if you hold that it was a regular case over there, it wasn't Riach Haskayu. So then, if you hold Malim and Truma L'Yuchsin, how are they allowed to give them Truma and not Kodesh HaMikdash? Malim and Truma L'Yuchsin means that if you see that he's eating Truma, you're allowed to assume that he's a Kohen for all aspects. It must be that over there, Riach Haskayu, the fact that we don't let them eat Kodesh HaMikdash, that was a declaration to everybody that they're not regular Kohen. So what happened yesterday was that the Gemara tried to prove from this brisa that Ein Malin in the Siyas Kapayim L'Yuchsin, and the Gemara rejected the proof. We don't know yet. So the Gemara said yesterday that that's called Chazaka. Chazaka means whatever you're doing, till now we're allowed to keep status quo. So they were eating Truma in Bavel, so they're allowed to continue eating Truma in Eretz Yisrael, but they were not eating Kodesh HaMikdash, they were not allowed to. That's what the Gemara says. Rashi says Gadol Chazaka means that the Rabbanan couldn't go against the Chazaka since they were steady status quo eating Truma, so we have to let them continue. That the Gemara doesn't know yet. That's going to be in the next line. So far, the Gemara doesn't know that. So the one on the top line says. So it seems that there was Truma in Bava, and the Rambam talks about that there are some places that are Chayiv. Rabbi is asking, we don't know of Truma in America. There's no Truma in America. So how come there's Truma in Bava? So it seems that the places where there was a Yishuv, but either the places that were close to Eretz Yisrael or in Bavel and the Mitzrayim, Ammon and Moab over there talks about. Sorry, it's another question about a kibbutz shachar, but about Bavel, there's some mashma that there was Truma Drabbanan. That's what it seems to say over here. And there's a Rambam like that. The more on the top line. That's what we're up to. Belamai Gedol Chazaka means it was bothered that Gedol Chazaka sounds like Rav Yossi yesterday. That was about how many lines up? About 20 lines up yesterday. Gedol Chazaka. It seems only Gedol Chazaka. You only can see the strength of the Chazaka if there was a risk of giving them this truma. And the Gedol Chazaka says you can't go against the risk. You have to allow them. You can't stop them their status quo. But if you're saying now that Riyach Eskayu, that there's no risk because everybody knows that if not them get Kachah Mikdash, and everybody else, all the other Kohanim are eating Kachah Mikdash, and after them you don't allow them to, so there's no risk. So why do you see Gedol Chazaka? How do you say anything strong about Chazaka? The fact that you allow them eating is because there's no risk at all. My answer is there was a Gedol Chazaka. That the Truma they had available in Bava was only Truma Rabbanan, and to say that they're allowed to continue eating in Eretz Yisrael now, when they come to Eretz Yisrael, there is Truma Deraisa. So the Chazaka says continue eating, even though the thing that they're eating now is not the same. The thing that they were eating in Bavel was Truma Derabanan, and now they come to Eretz Yisrael. Truma Deraisa, that is the Koach of Chazaka. Even if you want, I can say it differently than I said till now. Here the Gemara seems to take down the whole thing of Reach Chazaka. The Kasha that said that if you hold Malam and Truma L'Yuchsen, how could I allow them to eat Truma when Nehemiah allowed them to eat Truma and not Kachah Mikdash? Why is there not a chash that we're going to elevate them Malam and Truma L'Yuchsen once you give them Truma? So then some hold, the view holds that automatically we will allowed to elevate them to Yuchsen. Hashanami b'Truma Rabbanan achol b'Truma Deraisa lo achol b'Chim Maskina b'Truma L'Yuchsen b'Truma Deraisa b'Truma Rabbanan lo Maskina. That even when they came to Eretz Yisrael, we didn't say you could continue eating Truma, as the Gemara said a second ago. They now can even eat Truma Deraisa. They only had a chazaka for Truma Rabbanan, and they only could continue eating Truma Rabbanan. Means even since we weren't sure about them, so we're not going to give them Truma Deraisa. And in Eretz Yisrael, there's also Truma Rabbanan. Rashi points out that only dog and tirish v'yitzah, only grain and oil and wine is the raisa, even in Eretz Yisrael. So even when they came to Eretz Yisrael, we didn't allow them to eat the truma that's at the raisa level. We only let them continue eating truma derbanan. In Choslar, in Bavel, all the trumas derbanan, even if it's going to be targum tirish v'yitzah. But in Eretz Yisrael, they wouldn't be allowed to eat. We didn't up them to be able to eat truma deraisa. They're only allowed to eat truma derbanan. And as far as that goes, we didn't execute any kind of gedolah chazaka. And there's no chash anymore that malin truma liyuchsin because even Rabbi Yehuda says. Malin or Truma L'Yuchsin is only when they're eating Truma Deraisa. If you see somebody eating Truma Deraisa, so then Rabbi Yehuda says that you could assume he's a Kohen and also for Yuchsin. But if it's only eating Truma Derabanan, then we're not going to elevate them. But now the Gemara has to explain if that's so, so the Kash comes back again. The Kash on the top line was that what do you see Gedolah Chazaka? If you didn't, there's no risk. So where's their strength of Chazaka? Before the Gemara tried saying that we up them from Truma D'Rabbanan to Truma D'Oraisa, but now the Gemara is saying no, we don't. We just keep them at Truma D'Rabbanan. So what did the Chazaka do for you? The Gemara answers that it still is risk. In Bavel there was only Truma D'Rabbanan. You couldn't get Truma D'Oraisa if you tried. So over there we let them eat Truma D'Rabbanan, fine. But now they come to Eretz Yisrael, even though we're going to continue telling them only eat Truma D'Rabbanan, but it's risky because there is Truma D'Oraisa out there in Eretz Yisrael. If you have Dog and Tirish Mitzvah, this is going to be the D'Oraisa. So the Gedol Chazaka tells you that because of the Koach of Chazaka, we could keep them at we do have to keep them at the status quo that they still could continue eating Truma D'Rabbanan, even though now it's risky that they might take Truma D'Oraisa also. We tell them make sure you don't, but it's risky. And Gedol Chazaka is the power that allows us and forces us to let them continue eating Truma. But the Gemara did so far.
Was against the Rambam then.
What?
This Gemara is against the Rambam.
What's the Rambam saying?
That you all have two devices when you have
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
That you only have two devices when everybody, both Israel lives there.
The Gemara at the bottom of the page is going to talk about if Truma, that's going to be the bottom of the page. So far, the Gemara does talk about Truma D'Oraisa in Eretz Yisrael, and the Gemara at the bottom of the page is going to bring in the subject to talking about that only when you have all of Am Yisrael. That's going to be the bottom of the, towards the end, the second half of the page. I think it'll be.
No, it's right on.
Truma?
Let's wait till the end of the page to see the subject about.
We're talking about that we might think there's a gezerah because of Truma D'Oraisa.
Right.
We're still going to let them eat the Truma D'Rabbanan.
Right, and that's called the Koach
Chazakah.
Because of the Chazakah, we're going to continue status quo, even though now it's risky.
We're going to override the gezerah.
Right. So what the Gemara did, that we have a little few more lines to finish this subject. But this raya, we have the whole day is going to be today. The whole day is today going to be about this issue about Malin and the Siyas Kapayim Liyuchsin. If you see a Kohen doing in Siyas Kapayim, is that a raya that is a Kohen as far as making him a Miyuchas, as far as the Raisa issues? So, or more important, not everything's the Raisa. The Siyas Kapayim is also the Raisa, but that's over a say. If he does it, the only question is maybe you'll elevate him to be considered a Kohen, a bonded Kohen, that he's going to be authorized for more than we proved so far. So the first raya was from the Raisa that says Gedol Chazaka, and that allowed them to continue doing whatever they did in Bavel. The Gemara thought that means that they can do the Siyas Kapayim, and why you're not worried that the Siyas Kapayim they're going to come to do Yuchsin also? Is it not a raya Ein Malin when the Siyas Kapayim Yuchsin? And the Gemara rejected it by saying that over there it was different because everybody knew they were not official Kohanim, the authorized Kohanim, because they did not let them eat Kasher Mikdash. So that was like a hecker for them that they want you to make a mistake. The Gemara finishes off this point. The Gemara two Tirutzim, when they came to Eretz Yisrael, did they allow them to eat Truma D'Oraisa or not? So we brought the pasuk yesterday, the long pasuk about the Nehemiah Teshasa, and over there it says Asher Yochlu Lo Yochlu Mikodesh HaKodeshim, and we translated it that it means they cannot eat the Kasher Mikdash, and the Gedirk was, but they could eat Kasher Gvul, which is Truma. So now we just said a terrace now that we're not going to allow them to eat Truma D'Oraisa, only Truma D'Rabbanan. The pasuk does not much like that. That's a more discussion now. Put in parentheses as a side point. According to the second terrace now, over Truma D'Oraisa lo achol, you're saying that they did not allow them to eat Truma D'Oraisa when they came to Eretz Yisrael. Well, Ksiv. It says in the pasuk that Nehemiah said they should not eat Kodesh HaMikdash because Kodeshim would allow achol. But Truma D'Oraisa achol, it says they only restrain them from eating Kodeshim of the Mikdash. But that's mashma that Kodesh HaGvul, which is Truma, which applies even not in the Beis HaMikdash, even in Yerushalayim and other places in Eretz Yisrael. That's why it calls Mikdash and Gvul. Gvul doesn't mean Chutz La'aretz, it means out of the Beis HaMikdash, out of Yerushalayim. And that means that Truma they would be able to eat. The pasuk only says they can't eat Kodesh HaMikdash, but Truma they could eat. And now he's saying now in the second teretz that they cannot even eat Truma D'Oraisa, only Truma D'Rabbanan. Truma D'Oraisa achol. How could you say that they weren't allowed to eat Truma D'Oraisa? The Gemara says we can learn the pasuk differently. Kodesh HaKodeshim doesn't mean Kodesh HaMikdash. Achi kama lo b'mid dikri Kodesh t'chsev v'chol zol lo yechol Kodesh lo b'mikri dikri Kodeshim t'chsev v'vaskoi ki siyal izor ibis shumas HaKodeshim lo safal v'amama v'mur men HaKodeshim lo safal. So they were saying a different possibility. The words Kodesh HaKodeshim, till now we thought it meant that it means the Kodesh HaMikdash. We say no, it can mean two things. It can mean Kodesh and Kodeshim. There are two different points. One is going to be called Kodesh, and that's going to be Truma. Truma was called Kodesh, like you say, the Kodesh, and also what? And according to this pshat, so it does say don't eat Truma. According to the first pshat, we said Kodesh HaKodeshim means Kodesh HaMikdash. So that means only things that are in the Beis HaMikdash, but Truma is out of the Beis HaMikdash. But according to the Snoop pshat, we can read the word Kodesh means Truma, and it says don't eat Kodesh and don't eat Kodeshim. Don't eat Kodesh, which means Truma, as you find in the pasuk V'chol zol lo yechol Kodesh, over there it's referring to Truma. Another pasuk says Kodeshim, and it's referring to Kodeshim Kolim. It says Bas Kohen ki Yisrael izor he b'shumas HaKodeshim lo sochal, that if a Bas Kohen she marries Yisrael, so then the way the Drash goes that we learned in Yevomis, that it says that she's not allowed to, even if her husband dies, and she does go back without children, and she goes back to her father's house, and she could eat Truma, but she can't eat because of her show. Even she can't even eat after even if she does go back. That usually she only cannot eat the Truma while she's married to the Tsar, to the Yisrael. Once she goes back to her father's house, she would be able to, but there's a Drash to say that once she married a Tsar, she never could eat any more chaz of a show. That's not relevant to us right now. We just want to read a pasuk that the word kachim means kachim. That the word kachim doesn't refer to truma; it refers to the karbonos, chazav v'shok. But what the main point the Gemara is answering is that you thought kodesh hakadosh means kodesh hamikdash, and according to that it says show me that those kohanim who were they didn't have the ksav yichus, they could just not eat kodesh from the mikdash, but they could eat truma. Not necessarily. You could say over there. You could say that over there it says they shouldn't eat truma either. They shouldn't eat kodesh. They shouldn't eat kachim. They shouldn't eat truma. They shouldn't eat kachim. According to that, it does say that they may not eat truma. They only may eat truma drabana. So we have one raya that we tried to say that ein malin may Nesias Kapayim Yuchsin, and the Gemara rejected the proof. And the Gemara is going to go on to try more proofs. That's today's title. Can you prove that from the fact that a Kohen does Nesias Kapayim, could you say that is a meyuchas, which is negated to other things, the marriage? And that would depend. If you say that you are going to be mala, make sure it doesn't do Nesias Kapayim unless he's first verified. The Kohen comes into shul, he wants to do Nesias Kapayim. So it depends on this question. If ein mala in Nesias Kapayim Yuchsin, so there's no risk. You can do the Nesias Kapayim. You don't tell him, if you're not a Kohen, so you're doing an Avera, but it's not going to affect us. We're not going to stop him doing verification. You're doing the Nesias Kapayim, and no one's going to get excited just because they saw him doing the Nesias Kapayim that he's a Kohen. They're not going to go further. But if you hold Malin in the Nesias Kapayim, so then we have to stop him and not to do the Nesias Kapayim until he's verified Kohen. That's going to be the question. Tashma. It says in the Brisa, Chazaka Lakuna Nesias Kapayim beBavel, Bachilas Chala Besuya. It says three points that how do you make a chazaka for that is he's a kohen, which this word is a little bit vague because we don't know what it means. Kuna what? Chazaka for a kohen as far as what? So we'll hold that, and we don't know what that means yet. But to become a chazaka that is a kohen, the proof will be in the Nesias Kapayim in Bavel. In Bavel, you see a kohen, you see somebody doing the Nesias Kapayim, so then you could assume that he's a kohen. In Syria, you could assume that he's a kohen if you see him eating challah. Achilas challah b'Syria, Syria, and that was conquered by David. And there's a sugya about Syria. Always, it's considered a kibbutz yachid because he captured it before he finished capturing all of the promised land of Eretz Yisrael proper. So that's a sugya. It's not going to be our sugya over here, but it says that if you see a kohen eating challah in Syria, if you see somebody eating challah in Syria, saying that he's a kohen, you can assume that he's a kohen. Again, chazaka l'kuna, and chiluk matanos b'krochin. Matanos means zroel chayayim v'keva, which means the three parts of the animal that when you shecht chulin, nothing with a carbon. When you shecht an animal, every slaughtering, so you're supposed to give to the kohen three parts: the zroa, the chayayim, the keva, the arm and the cheek. I think it includes the tongue also, and the stomach. Those are presents you're supposed to give to the kohen. It's not kodesh, it's chulin, but it's a present. It's a present to the kohen. If you see a kohen getting that. In the Krochin means they're actually like a big city, a metropolis, even though there's no big avera to eat those, it's mechulin. Israel is also allowed to eat it. But the fact that he's taking it as a kohen, so he wouldn't do that in a place which is very populated, a Krochin. It's a big chutzpah to say I'm a kohen when you're not. People might know who you are. So it says over there that also will be a proof. If he gets chiluk matanas in the Krochin of Eretz Yisrael, so that would Eretz Yisrael, maybe not, maybe in Chutz also.
Which Krochin?
Maybe even Chutz, because the Royal Chayam V'Keva applies to Chutz also, if I remember correctly. So what? That's Syria. Here it says Krochin. Here it doesn't say Syria. I don't think Rashi says about this point of Krochin, where the Krochin are exactly.
It's a big city. That's why
I'm asking if the big cities in Eretz Yisrael or in Bavel or where.
So I don't see that Rashi says it either. I can imagine that it even means in Chutz because as far as I remember, as far as I remember that the Royal Chayam V'Keva applies to Chutz also. Maybe
Yes.
I'm wrong.
Yes.
It does. So maybe it means even in Chutz then. That even,
I thought it says the Syria.
we're further than that already.
All the United States butcher shops live away.
The problem is that the butcher shops in Israel also don't. So that's a question that has to be explained.
What was the
And
question?
how come you don't find that the slaughterhouses are giving to the Kohanim Zohar Chayam B'Keva? How come they don't give it? How come we don't find that the slaughterhouses are giving the Kohanim the Zohar Chayam B'Keva? The Kohanim should be getting a lot of tongues. A lot of, should be going to the Kohanim. So I was once in a slaughterhouse and I asked
Nice Yaakov Clement.
he asked him, what did he say?
I said, do you ever get, he said, no.
No.
I said, why not? He said, because they do a shituf with the goy. And then he's pater.
A shutfus, a partnership.
They do a partnership so that it's not owned totally by the Jew, and then therefore he's pater from giving because the goy has no chiyuv to give.
I didn't hear that. I didn't know
That's
that.
what Yaakov
Okay, I heard a different way how they get out of it. Okay, I don't know. Okay, but leave that on the side.
I know someone that gave.
Yeah, it's surely,
Well,
but
yeah, it's
that
a
not,
good
that's not,
Jew,
not,
yeah.
yeah, there are people who do it on their own. That when they slaughter, so then they do give Shvar L'chaim B'Keva. Yes. Okay, so just to, by the way, Levium don't have to give. Levium don't have to give Shvar L'chaim B'Keva to Kohen. Okay, but that's just,
So they do shuttas for a lady.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know the details. But anyway, that's all side point. The point one is the first part of the brisa that says Chazaka Lakuna, the Siyas Kapayim B'Bava. This is not what we're looking for. It says that if you see in Bava, in Chuslaris, you see someone doing Siyas Kapayim, that's a proof that is a Kohen. Now it doesn't say Perish, what is it going for? What's as far as what is he a Kohen? It says Chazaka Lakuna. We talked about Yuchsin, that as far as marriage goes, whatever we said that yesterday, there's an issue about proving himself as far as his lineage, as far as marriage goes. The question was about his daughter or about himself. We're not going into those
it seems that
details.
We have two main things, right? Whether it's Truma or Yitzhak. No,
Good. But yesterday we
whether
started.
it's marriage or eating Truma would be the
Right.
two.
So we had yesterday. The way the whole thing started was about if Malin the Truma Yuchsin. If you know that he's a Kohen as far as Truma goes, is that a right for Yuchsin? That's how the whole thing started.
Yeah.
And now the Gemara had a machlokas about that. The Gemara put into the Mishnah. That was a machlokas about Malin B'Juvah and Rabban Malin Truma Yuchsin. And then we went into the other subject about Shtoros and then about the Siyas Kapayim. So we want to know if somebody is doing the Siyas Kapayim, is that a raya that he's a Kohen as far as Yuchsin? So we tried to bring this raya that it says now, the second raya now, it says Chazaka Lakuna, the Siyas Kapayim B'Bava. So that's Chazaka Lakuna. It's ambiguous, but the Muslims try to analyze if we can prove what it means. My love Yuchsin. Doesn't this word Lakuna, doesn't it mean Yuchsin? If it means Yuchsin, so we found a brisa that says that you could say, you could assume that he's a Kohen for Yuchsin if you see him doing the Siyas Kapayim. Isn't that a good raya? So the Gemara says, no, not necessarily, doesn't say that. Well, the Truma, it could just mean that if you see him doing the Siyas Kapayim, you can give him Truma. If it says that, then it doesn't say more. It just says that you could see, if you see somebody doing the Siyas Kapayim, so then you can give him Truma. But it doesn't necessarily say that you could assume that he's a Meyuchas. If that would be easy to say that, then the subject will be over. But the Gemara says it isn't so easy to read that because go on. It says in the next point, B'achilas challah b'Surya. It says that in Surya, challah is eating challah is a proof that he's a Kohen. But if you're talking about if the subject of this brisa is telling somebody what kind of proof we need in order to give him truma, that doesn't make sense. That eating challah is a proof that he could get truma. Challah and truma is all the same. There's no difference. The Gemara is the starting point is going to be that there's no difference between the challah and truma. Challah is a kind of a truma. So that wouldn't make sense to say. It's like saying if you see him eating truma of dagan, you're allowed to give him truma of tirosh or dagan of yitzhar. It's all the same. Dagan tirosh, that's all truma. So truma and challah is also the same thing. So it doesn't make sense. The brisa wouldn't make sense if the brisa means that chazaka lakuna means to make him a meyuchas as far as marriage goes. So then it says that if he's eating challah, you can assume that he's a meyuchas. But if it just says that the whole brisa is talking about giving him truma, so that doesn't make sense. The first part would make sense that if you see him doing bechas kohanim, you can give him truma. But to say that if you see him eating challah, you can give him truma, challah and truma is all the same. That's not like you're not. It's the same thing. It's just there's different levels, different applications of the same law. You wouldn't be mamach and what. So the Gemara says, "Well, do we the chilas chalakatan?" He says in the same brisa, this case about Nesias Kapayim and Bavel and eating challah and Surya. Machilas challah b'Yuchsin after Nesias Kapayim Yuchsin. The case of challah, we're talking about Yuchsin because it wouldn't make sense to talk about truma. It's the same thing. Hainu hach. But the Gemara says no. Achilas du challah gufa letruma. You could say that when it says achilas challah is proof that he's a kohen, it means as far as giving him truma. And the question was, doesn't make sense. Challah and truma is all the same. Today Gemara is going to come to say there's a difference between challah and truma. It could be that truma is rabbanan and challah is daraisa. Kasava challah b'zman is that yes, the only reason that when we say that challah is a proof to something of his kahuna, it means not to yuchsin, it means just to give him truma. And then his explanation that part doesn't make sense. He's eating challah, so now you can give him truma. Challah and truma is all the same. The Gemara says no. It is possible that this brisa holds that challah is only drabanan, and the Gemara is going to say soon why. And truma is deraisa, and therefore that'd be a big chiddush that you see him eating challah, which is only drabanan, you can give him truma, which is deraisa. Umaskinan challah drabanan, the truma deraisa. We can lift him up. The word maskinan means to be ma'aleh. We can elevate him from the. If you see him acting on drabanan, we could also elevate him to give him a deraisa also. Maskinan challah drabanan, the truma deraisa. That would be a pshat in the brisa, which you could learn that it means truma. If you'd say that truma and challah is all the same, then you can't say if he's eating challah, give him truma. That's all the same level. It must be that he's going up. If you're going up, So then the Gemara thought you're going up to Yuchsin, and that's a right that the whole Rice is talking about Yuchsin. And if so, the Siyas Kapayim is also talking about elevating him to Yuchsin. But if we say that Trumas, that going from Chala to Truma is going up because Chala is only Rabbanan and Truma is the Raisa, so then you can learn the whole Rice talking about Truma, and it would not be a raya that from the Siyas Kapayim you go up to Yuchsin. Maybe only from the Siyas Kapayim you go up to Truma, but you don't see Yuchsin. But this whole question about which one that Chala could be Rabbanan and Truma is the Raisa, the Gemara doesn't explain it. The Gemara is going to hold us off till the end of the page. But it says, we'll see soon, soon we're going to see a discussion between Rafuna Beit Yavishua and the Rabbanan, and when you switch it around, like hafuch. So we're going to see soon that the Rabbanan said something, and Rafuna Beit Yavishua said the opposite, and this opposite is going to be the point we just said now, that Chala is Rabbanan and Truma is the Raisa. We'll see soon that there were people, the Rabbanan, that said that Chala is the Raisa and Truma is the Rabbanan. And Rav Huna ben Yeshua switched it around, and he said that Chala is Rabbanan and Truma is the Raisa. We'll get to that at the bottom of the page. That's all the Gemara wants now, is to say that it is possible to hold that Chala is Rabbanan and Truma is the Raisa. So therefore, the Raisa could be talking about raising him up to get Truma, and the question was, raising him up, Chala and Truma is the same thing? No, Chala and Truma is not the same thing. Chala is Rabbanan and Truma is the Raisa. But we have to have more information on the bottom of the page to see why that should be so. But again, what we did, we deflected the proof. We thought that when it says Chazaka Lekuna Nesiyas Kapayim L'Bavel, it must mean Chazaka Lekuna means Chazaka to Yuchsin. And if so, it's a fresh Rice that says that Nesiyas Kapayim elevates him, Malin and Nesiyas Kapayim L'Yuchsin. But we deflected the raya by saying that it doesn't talk about Yuchsin, it talks about eating Truma. So all you see is Malin and Nesiyas Kapayim L'Truma. You don't see that you even go up to Yuchsin.
What is it? Okay, so the way
The way we're going to see soon that when he was talking to the Rabbanan, he said, I'm going to say the opposite of you. Right.
We're saying right now, Chala is Rabbanan.
What?
We're saying right now, Chala is
No, Rabbanan means that there's different. Rabbanan means rabbinic. You know, there's the Torah law and there's rabbinic. That's the Rice and Rabbanan. Then there's Rabbanan that are called the rabbis. He was talking to some group of rabbis, and they said
switching to the rabbis.
Right, to the rabbis he was talking to. There were a group of rabbis in the bottom of the page that he was talking to a certain Rabban Chachamim, and they said a certain opinion. He said, no, it's the opposite. You're wrong. It's the opposite of what you said. Well, at the bottom of the page, it'll become clear. It is very interesting how the Gemara throws it at you as if you're supposed to know what you're talking about, and you can't know yet till another 20 lines.
Okay.
Tashma, this is a third rabbi. We're still on the lookout, on the search to find out if Malin Nesiyas Kapayim L'Yuchsin. If you see somebody doing Berachas Kohanim, does that mean that you could assume that he's a miyuchas as far as marriage goes also? Tashma, Chazaka Lekuna Nesiyas Kapayim. Same thing. This is the same. The Besida Rai is going in the same direction. It says Chazaka Lekuna Nesiyas Kapayim. Nesiyas Kapayim is a proof that he's a Kohen. But again, it doesn't say what kind of Kohen this is. That's the thing we still don't know. What kind of a Kohen is this? As far as what is he a Kohen? But it does say that the Nesiyas Kapayim would be a proof. The Brisa, to get the whole sentence, it says Chazaka Lekuna Nesiyas Kapayim v'chiluk granas be'eretz Yisrael. Chiluk granas means that you're giving him in the silo, you're giving him truma. That if you see one of these two things, either you see somebody doing Nesiyas Kapayim in the shul, or you see that he's getting truma by the silo in Eretz Yisrael, so then it's a proof that he's a Kohen. And if we could prove that Kahuna, that's the conjure that if the bride was going to be able to prove that the word Kahuna means Yuchsin, so we got it. We got what we're looking for. It says Chazaka Lekuna Nesiyas Kapayim. But if that's the pshat, then it'll say that Nesiyas Kapayim is a proof that is a miyuchas. But that's going to be the question. What does the word Kahuna mean? Maybe it means something else.
Might have in the second case, it's going to be the same kind of thing. If he's getting the garnos, that's like truma, isn't it?
That is truma. He's getting truma.
Yeah, so it can't be that there can't be a chazaka for truma.
Right.
It's the same kind of
right. Could it be
problem with
chala?
chala.
Right. Could it? But it doesn't say chala here yet. Right.
I'm saying that the problem with chala
that we had before.
We said it was like truma.
Right.
So chila garnos is also
is truma.
Is truma. It's the same kind of question.
Right. But it's even if you say chazaka l'kuna means truma, then it doesn't make sense at all, because truma for truma, that doesn't make sense at all.
That's what I mean.
And maybe we could say that means chala. Maybe chazaka l'kuna means in order to give him chala. That's what the Gemara is going to entertain, and we'll see something soon. But so far, what does it say in this proof? The Gemara thinks that it says chazaka l'kuna is in Nesiyas Kapayim, and we're going to assume that means yuchsin. The Brisa continues. There's some more information. Ubesurya, the comma is after the word Beretz Yisrael. Besurya goes together with the next. Ubesurya ubechol makom sheshluchei bez Rosh Chodesh magian Nesiyas Kapayim raya. In Surya and in any places else where when Bezdin would send message when it was Rosh Chodesh, we had that in I guess Maseches Rosh Hashanah. Over there it spoke about that when Bezdin would announce Rosh Chodesh, they would send messages. First, he used to do with the fires. He used to make fires on different mountains in order to get the message on one night. But then the Kusim were interfering and they made confusion over there. So they sent Shluchim. And to where did they send Shluchim? To Syria and to any other places that they were able to get, wherever they would send them to. So those places, the Siyas Kapayim,
What is the Magi?
that the Shluchei Bezdin, Shluchei Rosh Chodesh Magian, that the Shluchim would reach. The Shluchim would reach. I think it says that they reached until Yom Kippur, until Sukkot, until the Pesach, as much as they 2 weeks travel. 2 weeks travel, more or less.
From to the Gavul of Eretz Yisrael, to the Gavul to Babel.
I think they would go as much as they can get until.
Into Babel even? Into some of the border towns?
That was when they were sending a message.
Of when Rosh Chodesh?
That was when they sent messages by fire. Then they would do mountains and mountains until the whole bubble would be on fire.
No, I thought that when they went by foot, it was 15 days. By fire, it's a day or something. It's just that night.
Right. But I don't recall that it says 15 days. 15 days, it does say that it took 15 days to get to Babel when they were coming back from being all irregular. After all irregular, it took 15 days to get back. But I don't think it says that number when it talks about going. That used to go until.
When they took after the fires, they stopped the fires.
Yeah. And
then I thought they went by foot.
Yes.
So they have 15 days.
Why do you say 15 days?
I don't know. That's what I thought it was.
So I'm not sure.
Because then it's Yom Tov, and then it'd be too late.
And you also have to
only go as far as.
You have to deduct also Shabbosim and Yom Tov over there. You have to deduct the Shabbosim that they're traveling, so it's not 15 days travel, and it's going to also deduct Yom Kippur on the way.
Yeah.
Whatever you have to deduct over there. But I don't remember the details. But here it says that in Syria, in those places that the Shluchei Rosh Chodesh would reach, then the Siyas Kapayim is a proof. Avalochi Lugranos. Then the Siyas Kapayim. In the Eretz Yisrael, 2 things are approved. Both the Siyas Kapayim and Chiluk Granos. But in the places that are not Eretz Yisrael, Syria, or the places that are further Shluchei Rosh Chodesh Magian out of Eretz Yisrael. I didn't pay attention to this. I don't know what I'm saying. Maybe Shluchei Rosh Chodesh Magian means out of Eretz Yisrael. Here it says Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael. I didn't pay attention to this. I'm sorry, I don't know. But it says that this lo chiluk granos, that over there only the Siyas Kapayim is approved, but chiluk granos is not approved. And Babel Kesuria, Babel has the same Malach as Surya, which we said that chiluk granos is not approved. Rashi goes in to explain how come sometimes chiluk granos is approved, why is Surya yes, why is Surya not. Chiluk granos means truma, yes. And originally, when Bezdin was in Alexandria, also that would also be the din that the Siyas Kapayim would be approved, but not chiluk granos. I don't know the details of this brisa because
that's the end of the brisa.
That's the end of the brisa. Till Katani Mias, till the word Sham.
No, I thought that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel.
Yes. After Alexandria, Sham Mitzrayim, but Rishon of Bnei Bezdin Kvu Sham.
I thought that sounds like
Katani Mias sounds the Gemara. Until the word Sham is the brisa.
Yeah, Sham.
Okay, so that's all the brisa. I'm sorry that I don't know the details of all these different opinions, but the thing we're looking for is the beginning of the brisa. The beginning of the brisa, it says that Chazaka Lakuna is the Siyas Kapayim and Chiluk Granos in Eretz Yisrael. And can we prove what the word kuna means? That it could be assumed the Kohen if he saw him doing the Siyas Kapayim or getting Truma. So that's what the Gemara wants to analyze. Katani Mias, like in any case, even if you don't know the rest of the brisa, you do know, but the beginning of the brisa said the Siyas Kapayim. It says the Siyas Kapayim is a proof to kuna. Doesn't that mean for Yuchsin? My love the Yuchsin. What does the word kuna mean? Doesn't it mean for Yuchsin? That means that the Siyas Kapayim is a proof to Yuchsin. That's our whole question. Malan Siyas Kapayim Yuchsin. Gemara says no. Lachala. So here, it surely couldn't say that it means truma because right away it's going to say the Siyas Kapayim, the chiluk granos. Chiluk granos means truma. So you can't say that truma is a proof to truma. That if you see him eating truma, you can eat truma. That goes without saying. But that's what Levi Yaakov was saying before. You can't say. But the Gemara is going to say that it's talking about challah. That if you see him doing the Siyas Kapayim, you can give him challah. If you see him getting truma, you can give him challah. And the kasha now arises the opposite of what we had before. Before we spoke about if you give challah, you can give him truma. It's all the same. And it was saying if you see him getting truma, you can give him challah. It's all the same. That's the Gemara's kasha. How could he say that when it says it's a chazaka lakuna when he doesn't see his kapayim to give him challah? How do we the chiluk granos katani? Ma chiluk granos liyachsin after see his kapayim liyachsin? When it says in the rest of the next word that it says chiluk granos as a raya for kuna, over there doesn't mean challah because what's the difference between truma and challah? That would be no chiddush at all. That if you see him getting truma, you can give him challah. It must be that when you see him getting truma, you can assume that is yuchsin. Ma'alin truma liyachsin. So if so, when it says that the Siyas Kapayim is approved, just like Chiluk Granos, they must be talking about Yochsin. That's what the Brisa must be saying. And then Gemara says, no, it's telling you that Truma is proof to be able to give him challah. And everyone jumps up. Truma and challah is the same thing. Yet the Gemara says, no, Truma and challah is not the same thing. But the opposite of what I said before. No, chiluk Quran is gufa l'challah. If you see him getting truma, you can assume he's a kohen and give him challah. Why? What's the chiddush over there? It's all the same. Because truma b'zman is rabbanan v'challah d'oraisa. The opposite of what we said before. Before we said that challah is rabbanan and truma is d'oraisa. And if you see him getting challah, you can give him truma. And now we're saying the opposite. That truma is rabbanan and challah is d'oraisa. And there's a chiddush that if you see him getting truma, you can give him challah. Or maskina truma rabbanan v'challah d'oraisa. And who's that? Who's that opinion that holds that Chumas Rabbanan and Chalas Daraisa? This is Uchad Ashkechinu Ravuna Beda Rishul Rabbanan. Not Keda Apich. Before we said it Keda Apich. Before we said it's the opposite. The way of Huna Beda Rishua switched it around to the Rabbanan. But here, this is going to be the Rabbanan's opinion. Rav Huna Beda Rishua found the Rabbanan, some rabbis, that they were saying that Chumas is the Rabbanan and Chalas Daraisa. And he said the opposite. He argued and said no. He switched it around. He said no, the exact opposite. That Chala is the Chuma is the Daraisa and Chala is Rabbanan. So the Gemara is utilizing these two brises, these two opinions of Rav Huna ben Yeshua and the Rabbanan that he argues on to explain these two brises. One brisa held that Chala is the Raisa and the Chuma is Rabbanan. One brisa held the opposite, that the Chala is Rabbanan. Each time he's saying that the Rabbanan, the thing which is only rabbinic, can elevate him to get even a Raisa. So the first brisa we said that if he gets Chala, you can give him Truma. That means that Chala is Rabbanan and Truma is the Raisa. And this brisa that says that if you see him getting truma, you can give him challah. That holds that truma is rabbanan and challah is deraisa. And that's what now the Gemara at the bottom of the page here, for the bottom from this word about 12 lines up, the Amar of Huna Yeshua here is going to bring till we turn the page. It's going to bring this machlokes about which one, what is deraisa, which rabbanan. At first glance, we would say it's all the same. It's mitzvah safuyis ba'aretz. You have to, it's whatever, tithing, challah. What's the difference? But the Gemara is going to find there's a difference, and one opinion will be that challah is more deraisa than the truma, and one's going to be that truma is more deraisa than the challah. Huna ben Yeshua told us, Ashkachtinu the Rabbanan be'Rav, the Yasvi Bakami. I found the Rabbanan of the yeshiva that was sitting and saying, or be'Rav means of the yeshiva, or it means of Rav, but there were certain Rabbanan that was saying, Afilu Amandama Truma was Manazad Rabbanan, challah deraisa. Even if you hold truma during these days, which means a question about kedushas oretz. That Kedusha Rishon, Kedusha L'Shaita, Kedusha L'Asa level, does Eretz Yisrael have Kedusha nowadays on the Raisa level? So somehow that it doesn't. Somehow the Truma B'zman is Ezra Rabbanan. That when the consecrated Eretz Yisrael, and then they were exiled, so the Kedusha went off. Even if you hold that Truma during these days is Rabbanan, but Chala is still the Raisa. Even though it doesn't have yet Kedusha Saras, the land the land's conquest was over, and they're not considered anymore that the Am Yisrael conquered Eretz Yisrael, and it was not re-sanctified, re-consecrated, but Chala is the Raisa. Sharei, Zion, Sheva Shekavshu, Sheva Shechelku, Nischayvu B'Chala, V'lo Nischayvu B'Truma. That they were not Chayv in Truma until they conquered the land.
They conquered and they divided it up.
Right, so there were 7 years it took until they conquered, and then there was another 7 years until they divided it.
Yeah.
And until those 14 years were over, so they were not Chayv in Truma because the conquest did not take effect. So you have to. So they were not Chayv, but he says they were Chayv and Chala. They were Chayv and Chala as soon as they came to Eretz Yisrael, even though the Kedusha Saros was not there. So Kedusha, so here everyone agrees that Chala is not dependent on Kedusha Saros, and Truma is. So here he says that even if you hold that Truma B'zman says Rabbanan, still Chala is going to be the Raisa. Why? Because I see that before. Now the Kedusha went off. The Kedusha
That's what the rabbis said.
Right. This is what the Rav Huna ben Yeshua found the rabbis that were saying that even if you hold Truma B'zman says Rabbanan, because the Kedusha Saros went off, and the conquest was bottled since we were exiled, so we have no conquest anymore, and therefore the Kedusha Saros went off as far as Allah Tluis Boretz, but Chala is still the Raisa. Why? Because Chala was the Raisa before they conquered. The same way before they conquered it was the Raisa. So then even after the conquest is over and they lost the conquest, still is the Raisa.
Because it didn't depend on the land.
Right. And how do you see that they were Chayv and Chala immediately? Because it says Bevo Achem. It says when you come to Eretz Yisrael. And that says by Chala. By Chala it says Bevo Achem. It doesn't say by the other mitzvahs of Truma. So even if you hold that they were not Chayv in Truma, but they are Chayv and Chala right away.
Well, Bevo Achem doesn't mean they have to have conquered it. They just have to
come right, as soon as you come. And that's what the Rabbanim said. And I, Rav Huna ben Yeshua, I replied to them, no, the opposite. And I said to them, other Rabbi, on the contrary, That's the opposite. That even if you hold that chala chumba banazeh is the raisa because the kedusha saras lo batla, but chala is not the raisa because there's another condition you need in order to be chayiv in chala. Because he holds that the word bavo achem doesn't mean as soon as you come in. The word bavo achem means when all of you come, and it means there's another factor that you have to have that everybody should have come back to Eretz Yisrael. The whole Am Yisrael has to be in Eretz Yisrael. The Tanya bavo achem al haaretz, bavo achem yachol mishnechus lo shnam v'shloshem meraglim. That you might have thought that as soon as anybody goes into Eretz Yisrael, even in the Bnei Meraglim, 2 or 3, as soon as they enter Eretz Yisrael, that's called that they entered. No, it has to be b'voachem, b'vias kolchem, only when all of you come. So that means more than truma. Kolchem. That you only chayiv in challah when everybody comes in. And now he ends off. V'chiaskinu Ezra. We turn the page. When Ezra brought up people to Eretz Yisrael, lo kolu asal. Not everybody came. That people has remained in Babel. So since not everybody came, that's why challah is going to be drabbana. Truma is not dependent on bias kolchem, but challah is. So here we just learned the two opposite opinions. You could behold that.
Wait a minute, what was the last thing? He's saying that the challah is diraisa.
He's saying challah is drabbana. Rav Huna ben Yeshua himself holds that challah is drabbana even if truma is diraisa.
Because even when Ezra came, it wasn't everybody.
Right, and
So
therefore
at that
even
time it was diraisa.
and it stays drabbana until all Am Yisrael comes. Means we're waiting.
Oh, it stays until
all of Am Yisrael. Right, till everybody comes. So we're waiting for everybody to come.
Okay.
That it should be challah deraisa. So the Gemara just showed you the two opinions. That it's possible to hold that truma is derabbanan and challah is
He
deraisa.
gets it from babuachem.
Right,
meaning
right.
everybody.
Everybody, right. Rabbanan also said the babuachem shows something, and they said that it means
if it's
even
not counted.
not counted. So you have two opposite opinions. You can hold one opinion holds that truma bazman is could be drop means it's two different factors. Each one is totally dependent on something else. Truma is totally kedushas aretz. Everybody seems to agree to that. And it's a machlokis if kedusha we shown kedusha shnei kitchel l'shaytav kitchel as a labo or not. It's a machlokis. If nowadays we have kedushas aretz, if it was reconsecrated, if the consecration went off by the exile, that's a machlokis if kedushas aretz nowadays, which would make truma deraisa or truma rabbanan. But the criteria for challah is not kedushas aretz. It is if bevoachem, which either means as soon as anybody came, or it means when everybody came. And it seems to be possible like
No, as soon as it was conquered.
even before the conquest. The one
Before
who says
even before the conquest.
right, the one who says the first 14 years, the opposite. The Rabbanan said that even before it was conquered, challah, as soon as you come in, you know, it's Israel. As soon as anybody comes in, right? That's what it seems. Even
When
before,
the spies
even
came
before
in, it was already became
maybe I don't know what they hold about that, but they don't hold you need the conquest, irrelevant of the conquest. And he also
irrelevant of the conquest.
Right.
It's going to be a deraisa.
right, and that they said even before, and now he's saying the opposite that you have to be a skolchem, you have to have everybody coming. Also, maybe he might say that it's irrelevant of the conquest, but that's everybody's here. Everybody's here. So how does he go? The two possibilities. It could be the chumas drabanan and the chalas deraisa. It could be the chumas deraisa and the chalas drabanan.
And because it's the rabbis in this one opinion, the halacha would be like the rabbis.
No, I think the halacha is like the one opinion. I think it's the halacha like the Huda B'Di Yishua. You have to be a skolchem. You have to have everybody should be in this. Chalas drabanan. Even if you hold
today.
it happens to be that we hold that
I thought it was
chuma.
deraisa.
You do think so?
I don't know.
I think there's an interesting Rambam. The Rambam against the Gemara seems to say that this din of bias kolchem is only by challah, not by truma. That seems to be open Gemara. But there's a Rambam that says truma also has to have bias kolchem. See, everything is the right. The Rambam says that's the halacha is like the Rambam, but it seems to be against the Gemara that he says bias kolchem also applies to truma. It's not the Gemara. Our Gemara says bias kolchem is a din in challah only. I think we pass that kedusha that lo kishalos means the kedusha soras as far as truma is only drabbana, and there's also the point about the Rambam that about bias kolchem they says applies to truma also. So everything would be drabbana until the whole Am Yisrael comes. Some people say rov, but this Gemara seems to say bias kolchem. It seems to say everybody. So I don't know where that comes from. Here it seems to say bias kolchem. You have to
That's what I
have
said. Kulchem means you look-
rov. Okay. So
Kulchem means rove.
We have a cloud in Shas. Rubek Kulchem.
Oh, Rubik.
Majority.
Yeah, very nice. Okay.
So that was what did we do so far. We had three rides already, and each one we didn't succeed. It means we're trying to show if this, we're trying to show if Nesias Kapayim is approved to Yuchsin, and we didn't prove it yet. We started off with a focus on the Rambam, of course, then Rabavina, but as far as the rise from the Brisa, we didn't succeed in proving it yet. Every time we said that it means something else. It means the first time that it says that you could do Nesias Kapayim and not eat kachin or not yuchsin. He said because over there was special reachas kayu, that over there was something that protected that no one should make a mistake. And the second rise, when it said that it's Nesias Kapayim is a right for kahuna, it doesn't say kahuna what. So we could say that kahuna means either for truma or for challah, but it doesn't mean that it's a raya for yuchsin. So we didn't find the raya yet. We're on number days on the top line. Tashma. Chazaka lakuna, Nesias Kapayim. Okay, so far we had that already, and we saw that doesn't impress us because maybe this means a chazaka for challah or something that we don't know. But here it says chazaka lakuna is Nesias Kapayim v'chiluk granos, which also doesn't impress us because maybe it means for challah as we just did before. We just went through that. But here it says also ve'edus. That's going to be the what we're going to focus on. Chazaka for kahuna. Again, we don't know what the word kahuna means. That's also going to be a question, but it says Nesias Kapayim, Chiluk Granos, and Eidos. So first of all, it says, what does that mean?
What does that mean? That would mean that if you see somebody who's testifying.
No, if you have testimony, the first letter means you have testimony that he's a Kohen.
Oh, you have testimony that he's a Kohen. Okay.
So that doesn't make sense. Eidos Chazaka, Eidos Chazaka, that's not called a Chazaka, that's called testimony. If Eidim come and say that he's a Kohen, nothing to talk about. So you can't read the Brisa like that. The Brisa must mean Nesias Kapayim ki Eidos. It must mean that these things, Nesias Kapayim and Chiluk Granos, is like Eidos, is like testimony. Not that Eidos, not that it's telling a Chiddush testimony is good. Of course, testimony is good. It means that Nesias Kapayim or Chiluk Granos is like testimony, and testimony totally is good for Yochsin also. Ma Eidos Yochsin after Nesias Kapayim Yochsin. So if that's true, that the Brisa is telling you it's as good as testimony, that will be a proof that Nesias Kapayim and Truma is also a proof that he's for marriage also, that he's a miyuchas. No, so you could read the Brisa differently. Eidos habo mikol chazaka chazaka. We just leave it as three things, and it says Nesias Kapayim is good. Maybe it's only good for truma or whatever. Chiluk Granos is good, maybe for challah, and Eidos is good. What does Eidos good? What does Eidos mean? Eidos not the testimony. What it means, if you have testimony based on the chazaka, is good enough. And the Gemara is going to say stories now. What kind of chazaka? It means if Eidim come and say, I can testify that I saw something, but you don't know what he saw yet, that's also going to be enough of a proof that he's a Kohen. But it doesn't say Yochsin. Nothing's talking about Yochsin over here.
What is that? I guess we're going to get an example, but what's an Eidos that came by Koach of the Chazaka?
Right. That's the Gemara. The Gemara is going to say a story, and then Taisus is going to explain why I listen to the words. A person came to Rabbi I have an assumption that I'm not better than assumption. The word chazaka, I have any better word than assumption. Okay, I have. It seems to me, whatever I know that this man's a Kohen. How do you know?
Precedence.
What?
I don't know precedence. Okay. Assumption.
Okay, we'll see the story and then you'll tell me what the word is. Mara is, what do you see? Why do you say he's a Kohen? He got the first aliyah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Stop over there. I read it wrong. Because he got the first aliyah. I was in shul and he got the first aliyah. So he's a Kohen. So the Rabbi asked him, how do you know? There's also getting a first aliyah, something we don't do it nowadays, but really a person who's a big Talmud Chacham is supposed to get the aliyah before the Kohen. If he's really, really great. I think Chacham Ovadia used to get the first aliyah at least once a year, even though it's a Kohen over there. There's a Gemara that says that the Gadol is supposed to get aliyah even if it's a Kohen. So he said, how do you know he's a Kohen? Maybe he was a Gadol, maybe he was a big Chacham. So we told him, Shekar Achrav Levi, because Levi got the second aliyah. So I know that he's the first aliyah. And Rabbi was satisfied. Rabbi said, okay, he's a Kohen. That's the case of, that's what Levi Yaakov wanted to know. What does it mean, a testimony based on a chazaka? This is the case. I testify he got the first aliyah, and that's a testimony which is based on a chazaka. Taisus says on top here, why is it called based on a chazaka? Top Taisus, that we have. How do you know the second one's a Levi? Because that's already registered that the other one's a Levi. So if I see somebody getting a aliyah, the first aliyah, and after him somebody who's assumed to be a Levi, I can assume the first one is a Kohen. So
didn't the Gemara just say or a gadol?
What?
Or a gadol?
No, that was a kasha. Rabbi was asking him that Rabbi said, what kind of proof is that? Maybe he got the first aliyah because he was a gadol, not because he was a Kohen. And the answer was, he told him back, no, you have to make a lot of amalays. Put in a bunch of amalay. Amalay, b'cheskeshu kono, b'cheskeshu gadol. Amalay, shekar achrav levi.
So if the gadol gets the first one, then you don't give the Levi.
Right. So the Gemara says that this is a shot in the Bryce. When the Bryce says that if you see him either Messias Kapayim, walking with one, and so Eidos, that's right as a Kohen. But it could be the Eidos just means that you saw him getting an Aliyah first in the shul, and Levi got second. That's enough to assume him a Kohen. But doesn't mean for Yuchsin. Means we got out
That's
of
a
the.
chazaka what
That's a chazak. There's a Kohen as far as
was the
Truma.
aegis?
The Eidos was that I saw him get the first Aliyah.
Oh, I testified that I saw him get the aliyah.
Yeah, and the second one, was a
Levi
Levi.
came after.
So okay, we're very impressed. That's not going to mean we're not going to make Yuchsin. We're not going to maybe we won't give him Truma the rice either. That's a Kohen. He's a Becheskas Kohen. But that doesn't mean that if we read the Bryce, it means Eidos means it's as good as testimony. Then it means there's mamish testimony. It means it's for Yuchsin. But we got out of that. We said it doesn't mean testimony. It means it's
means
system.
that whatever Kahuna meant for those others.
Right. And the
some
other case.
kind of
Some kind of a status of Kuna, but it doesn't mean Yuchsin. So we got out of it. And now we get into the sugya of getting an Aliyah first. Is that a right that is a Kohen? We had a nice story. And now that's telling me a word of Chazaka. What is that called? Chazaka.
In what?
What is the word Chazaka? Do you have an English translation for the word Chazaka? Eidus Avam Mikoah Chazaka, Kechazaka. Okay.
Davis quotes sometimes. Davis quotes. It's known to
A status quo. A status quo that the other one was considered a Levi, so I could assume he's a Levi, so I could assume that he's a Kohen. Okay, something to that effect.
That's our article.
Presumption. Yeah, I was saying presumption.
Presumption?
Mice, you got the article.
It can be presumed. Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, so
So
now
we're up to Baaleu.
Abiyami made him to be a Kohen. What Kohen? To get an Aliyah, to get Truma Rabbanan
Oh,
maybe.
that's that first story.
Right, and now we have some more stories now. Now it's about a Levi. Here's a Levi story. All the Levium are invited to the next story. Who does look?
In other words, he had a chazaka to be called up as the Kohen. From that testimony that people saw him get an
Get a
aliyah.
Kohen. So now he's a Kohen as far as what? As far as what?
As far as getting an aliyah.
Or other things also. Maybe get Truma Rabbanan.
We
Other
only
things
see it
also.
for an aliyah.
What?
We only see it for aliyah.
You see that an Aliyah shows something else. That he's a Kohen.
No, there was testimony that a Levi followed him.
And he got the
And
first
then it's-
Aliyah. He got the first Aliyah, and a Levi followed him.
And then we see that Rav Ami
Said that he's a Kohen.
said that he's a Kohen for Ba'alehu. Oh,
No,
Alehu doesn't mean.
It doesn't mean
making-
Aliyah. It doesn't mean Aliyah.
Oh.
It means he elevated him to be a Kohen.
Okay.
He said he's a Kohen.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean Yuchsin. It doesn't mean Trumat Araisa. That was the first story. Another story, more stories. Somebody told you Rishub Levi that this person, I presume him to be a Levi. Amalei Mama, he said, what do you see? How do you know that? Amalei, Shikar Sheni B'Sakneses. He got Sheni. So he told him, B'Cheskeshu Levi or B'Cheskeshu Godol. Maybe because he was a Godol. Means maybe the first one was a Godol, and he was also a Godol. Maybe the first one was a Godol, and the second one was a Godol. But no, here they're in front of all of the Kohanim and Leviim. So it says, no, she called the front of Kohen because the Kohen was first. So I see that he's a Levi.
No.
And Rishub Levi was impressed. But later Rishub Levi.
This is clarifying the first story.
No, it's another
the second
story.
story, but it's just a different.
It's a different story. The
Example.
first one was proving somebody's a Kohen because Levi got second. And this is proving somebody's a Levi because the Kohen got first.
Yeah.
It's not the same story. It's two
Oh.
stories.
So the opposite way.
But later Rishub Levi, Levi, I'll pick. But Rishub Levi may say he's a Levi. New story. Who does look? I made the Rish Lakish. Amalei. Mosakani was Esher Kohen. Somebody told Rish Lakish that this clone needs a Kohen. Amalei, my way is what did you see? Amalei, Shekar Rish Basic Nessas. So he got the first Aliyah. Amalei, Reisiv Shechalak Alagronis. Did you see him getting Truma? Means Rish Lakish was not impressed with getting Aliyah. Till now, they were impressed. As long as he made sure that Levi got second. But Rish Lakish was not impressed. He said, did he see him getting Truma? Means that would impress me. But the fact that he got a Kohen, the first Aliyah, I'm not impressed. They mentioned going but lacuna, and if there's not going to be any silence giving out truma, so you're not going to be able to prove someone's a Kohen, means you're not going to rely on the proof of getting the first aliyah in the shul, only if you get truma. That was Rav Elazar responded to Rish Lakish. Zimnin Abu Yasfi Kamed Rabbi Yochanan, a different time. Rish Lakish and Abu Elazar, continuing the story. Rish Lakish and Abu Elazar were sitting in front of Rabbi Yochanan. And the same story happened. Somebody came in front and said, I know somebody's a Kohen. And Rish Lakish asked, how do you know? And he said, because I saw him getting the first aliyah. Again, Rish Lakish was not satisfied. He said, did he see him getting truma? Now it wasn't Abu Elazar, but Rabbi Yochanan who was there. He told Rish Lakish, and if there's no sign of giving out truma, so you're not going to prove that he's a Kohen, means you're not going to rely on the first aliyah, which was the same kasha that Abu Elazar asked, but Rabbi Yochanan was the Rebbe. So Rish Lakish chapped that Abu Elazar said this because he had heard from Rabbi Yochanan who had that complaint. So, and he didn't say in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. He just had the Chazer Rabbi Elazar Bishos. So Rabbi Elazar, Rish Lakish gave a bad look at Rabbi Elazar. Omar, when he said Bishos is like bad, like a bad look.
Like a busha?
No, like the word in Aramaic for bad, for Ra, is Bish. Omar, Shamat Mili de Bar Nafcha V'lo Amat Lam Bishmei. You heard something from Rabbi Yochanan and you didn't tell us in his name. Means now I see that you got it from Rabbi Yochanan. You should have told me Rabbi Yochanan said so. If you said so, I wasn't so impressed. So I argued with you. If you would have told me Rabbi Yochanan said so, then I would have been more impressed. I would have. But how come you didn't tell me in his name? For some reason, Bar Nafcha is a name that they call Rabbi Yochanan. I don't know why. It says in the side something about his father being very beautiful. I'm not sure. He says in the, I didn't look it up. It says in the side Rashi and Edin Sadik Vav says the reason why Rabbi Yochanan is called Bar Nafcha. But the story was that somebody came and said, I know somebody's a Kohen because I see that he got the first Aliyah. Rish Lakish wasn't impressed. He said, I want to see if he got Truma. I'm not impressed. And Rabbi Elazar told him, why are you not impressed? If there's no silos, you're not going to have enough proof that he's Kohen, only Truma. Aliyah is also good enough proof. And then the same story happened again. Rish Lakish and Rabbi Elazar were together with Rabbi Yochanan, and the same thing happened over again, that somebody came and said, I know he's a Kohen. And how do you know? Because he got the first Aliyah. Rish Lakish told him, how about Truma? You seen getting Truma? And here Rabbi Yochanan spoke up and said, and if there's no Truma, you're not going to assume there's a Kohen because of the Aliyah. So Rish Lakish realized that Rabbi Elazar had told him those words, the exact words Rabbi Yochanan had said, because he had heard it already from Rabbi Yochanan. So he should have told me that you got it from Rabbi Yochanan. He shouldn't have said it on your own.
The source.
That, yeah, then I would have been impressed, but you just said it on your own.
Facing the Rish Lakish
At a time on Rabbi Elazar. Why didn't you tell me? You got it from Rabbi Yochanan. Yeah, then I would have accepted it. So that's the end of the sugya, it seems. And
Mishmei.
And the two dots over there, yeah. And then tomorrow starts we'll stop over here. Tomorrow starts a new sugya. So yeah, I didn't see it yet. And the subject we had was Ayamala from the Siyas Kapayim to Yuchsin. We tried 4 rayas, none of them worked. And we started with a machlokas amarom. So one said yes, one said not. The Rambam says the Rambam just said the Rambam. He says that in order to give somebody truma deraisa, he says all the kohanim nowadays. This is Perakov and Yisur Bia. All kohanim nowadays only have a cheskas kohen. You don't have any testimony someone's a kohen. Everybody's becheskas kohen. He comes says he's a kohen. Becheskas kohen. He says that you can't give truma deraisa to somebody like that. Only truma derabanan. Truma derabanan you could give.
Right there, Rebbe for Rebbe.
Yes, 2 dots before that. So Rambam says that you can't give Truma Deraisa only if you have 2 Eidim. If someone wants to say he's a Kohen or Yuchsin and Truma Deraisa, he has to bring 2 Eidim that he's a Kohen. 2 Eidim, he has to have 2 Eidim to verify. Eidach is not enough, and Shorosh is not enough, and all these things, and Aliyah is not enough.
None of them.
Nothing. That's what Rambam says. That all these things, but Shtano, I mean, Shtar, like he says on the contract that he's a Kohen, he says that Ruvain the Kohen lent the money.
Is that like eating?
I don't know what Shtar Yichus is. I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know what it is. That just means that he has a family tree. What does that mean? Who signed on it? Who says that it's true? I'm not sure. So I don't know. But that's the Rambam that says that for Truma Rabbanan, you can give on a chazak alone. On the chazak alone, but given Truma Deraisa, he has to prove that he 2 Eidim that he's a Kohen. And these other things, like it says here about the Siyas Kapayim and getting an Aliyah, that's all good for Truma Derabanan. But for Truma Deraisa, you have to have 2 Eidim. And for Yuchsin surely.
But we're not going to have. That's only going to become a problem once we're not tummy, right?
And we have Truma Deraisa, right? And we can't start eating. Nowadays, we're not eating Truma Derabanan either nowadays.
Okay. And in terms of the. I'm sorry.
Yeah, someone comes into the shul, he wants an aliyah. He says he says he's a Kohen. So we give a Kohen. We give him the Siyas Kapayim. It doesn't cost us any money. But that he should be able to eat Truma Deraisa, we're not going to allow only if he proves that he's a Kohen.
And in terms of the gadol of a chazaka, we did show that there is some gadol.
Yeah, two pshatim over there, gadol chazaka. That even though there was a question over there, there was skepticism.
We didn't have any proof what that means.
As far as the miyuchas,
in terms of miyuchas, but in terms of the idea of a hazaka, we came up with things.
Right. There are 2 pshatim. The one is that even if you only had Truma Rabbanan, we'll give him Truma Deraisa based on that. Since the Bible they made Truma, and the other pshat was also we'll give him Truma Rabbanan even though there's a Xavier, he might come to Kibbutz Raisa, not that they're in Eretz Yisrael. So that was another shot in the Gedol Chazaka.
They used to give Rabbi Yosef.
The first,
The first
not every
time,
Shabbos. I think once a year. I think so. That's what I heard.